Post-cycle means you're off, means 8 weeks or more. So you took your last shot of Sustanon, and from that last shot, wherever you put it, that last shot of Sustanon or Nandrolone or Trenbolone, whatever it is, it's gonna be at least 8 weeks before you pin yourself with anything that's inside that pin that is an active anabolic steroid. Again, 8 weeks minimum. So I'm counting, if you just injected yourself, the thing has, even if you're doing once a week, and you were doing once a week, which nobody who's sitting at hard would, but any compound, even long-acting esters, once a week, you're gonna end up having, say that was the case. Obviously, you're not really off until that second week, right? Because if your regimen was once a week, say, it's not really, you're not off. It's just like your body thinks you're gonna take another shot that following Monday if it's Monday. You get the drift. But the point is that it's really only like a 7-week break, because that first whole week is when you would take it anyway. That being said, now that I confused everybody, so it's an 8-week break from the last injection. Your body is going to be most susceptible or most able to respond to hCG about 6 to 8 weeks after that last shot, if it's a long-acting ester. The longer the better, to a point, because the longer the better, the more your body is starved of androgens, to the point where the hypothalamus and pituitary, based on your own genetics of recovery at the endogenous level, which is unpredictable, even per time. If you can't even do enough cycles to know, like, oh, well, sometimes it takes me this amount of weeks before my test is this level. Sometimes it takes me this amount. It's always going to be different. And it's not even because of age or experience or repetitive cycling. It's going to be per refractory damage to the level of the hypothalamus and pituitary, how hard the sensitivity read of the androgens that you put in your body within that cycle are on those two glands. That's what's going to determine, and you can never tell. But you can know generalizations, like if you use a bunch of Trenbolone and a bunch of, let's say, what else is really inhibitory? Nandrolone is really inhibitory, guys. A bunch of Trenbolone and Nandrolone, maybe not together because you have a clue, but say you did, a few cycles back to back, or just high doses of test, like above like 700, 800 milligrams, you're definitely going to have, whether or not you do it with the synthetic or not, you're going to have major inhibition. So hCG post-cycle is going to be most sensitive the longer you wait. Obviously, you don't want to wait that long. You want to turn the leydig cells back on. So how long will it be before the leydig cells will respond to hCG? Well, we know that if you're taking a bunch of synthetic anabolic steroids and you have the inhibition going on, at the negative inhibition at the level of the hypothalamus and pituitary, like I always say, you guys are going to get sick of me doing this. I'm going to drill it into your head, though. You'll never be able to forget. You have 2-level inhibition from any anabolic steroid. Both these glands, hypothalamus, reads negative feedback, and so does the pituitary. So you have dual inhibition, and then you have the inhibition between the two, because the GnRH from the hypothalamus, remember, talks to the pituitary and tells it to produce LH. So when should you wait? Well, I don't think you should wait very long. I think if your break technically starts, if you're really anxious about it, like I still don't like to not count that week. So if I'm going to take an 8-week break, exactly 8 weeks from the last pin of my drug, wherever I put it, 8 weeks later, say I'm scheduled to start, as long as my blood work's good, I'll start again on the correct day of that 8th week break. So 8 weeks is all you got. So when do I do it? I wouldn't personally take hCG in a fashion to try to initiate an endogenous boost more so than what I would take if I was on a long cycle and just kept my testes alive with hCG. I would wait 2 weeks from that shot, just so I know for a fact that whatever was in my system, the plasma serum levels of the drug are going to still be working, guys. You're not going to shrink at all, but you'll probably feel it by 2 weeks. Maybe not. It depends. Even with long-acting esters, even per person, genetically, it depends. I just remember when I was a young dude and I took long breaks, I wouldn't really crash till 8 weeks after I stopped. That's when I would first start to know I'm not on it anymore, whether or not I use hCG. But that's irrelevant for now, because I said before, things change every time you do it, not just with age and inter-individual, between that person and themselves. Not just the difference between me and my buddy, who seems to have the same genetics and at the same level of development as me. And then, he recovers fast, I recover slow, whatever. There's a huge difference between the person themselves each time. It might be the same a bunch of times. You're like, you don't know what you're talking about, Renee. Like, it's always the same for me. It might be 2 or 3 times, guys. It's not going to be if you keep cycling and doing stuff. You'll see, especially because you're probably a younger dude if that's the case. Or if you're even taking a break these days with all this Instagram crap and people juicing left and right, lying their asses off. But 2 weeks after whatever you're doing, that last shot is when your body's going to be reasonably susceptible, because you have a low enough plasma level of androgens from your last shot 2 weeks ago that your body it's going to be more responsive than if you took hCG the day you took your last shot and then you take your hCG in the sub-Q fat. So 2 weeks later you take it. That's how you use it. And then 2 to 3 times a week, you take anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 milligrams, 1,500 IUs of hCG. 1,000 to 1,500 IUs of hCG 2 to 3 times a week is all you need. More than that, you're gonna produce a shit ton of estrogen, and you're not gonna produce any more testosterone, because there's a threshold, like within the genetic human programming of the DNA at the genomic level, that governs how much your body will produce estradiol out of hCG, a given dose, and testosterone. So it's you can get around that a little bit by using anastrozole very sparingly, like 0.5 milligram the day before each hCG shot, no matter what size the hCG shot, because anastrozole will peak. It has something called a T peak or T plasma peak, roughly 14, 16 hours, upwards of 24 hours after you take it in most literature, which means if you take anastrozole at 4 p.m. on a Monday and you take your hCG, it's going up in your blood, it's hooking up receptors, it's doing its thing. The drug is now peaked in your bloodstream, and it's already had enough time to start hooking up at the genomic level and doing what it actually does. Not just the fact that you took it, it's in your blood level, and now it's being dispersed and used. That level starts about 24 hours after any dose of anastrozole. And it's linearly kinetic. So if you take a bigger dose, you just get a bigger spike, but it's not any sooner than that 24 hours, say. So if you're gonna do your shot on Tuesday at 4 for hCG, and you're just starting it and you don't want extra estrogenic side effects from the hCG, and you're taking a reasonable dose, it's still an estimate, guys. None of this is, down to the last microgram or milligram of anastrozole to take, but it's very reasonable to take 0.5 milligram of anastrozole 24 hours before 1,000 to 1,500 unit injection of hCG, so that you have your anastrozole peak. It's starting to get dispersed and used at the genomic level. It's active, it's doing its thing, it's dropping aromatase. And then at that point, you take your hCG shot, and 24 hours later, your estradiol peaks, as we've said before. It peaks before the 48-hour mark where testosterone peaks. So you're buffering that time where basically all you're doing is elevating estrogen by way of physiological law and responses that the human body has to hCG subcutaneous injections. You're blunting at the genomic level, the aromatase level. So it can't go up, it's being blocked. That's what aromatase does, or aromatase inhibitors do, right? AIs do, especially anastrozole and letrozole is super potent. So it's blocking that rough estimate, 0.5 milligram of anastrozole to 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams of hCG. And now 48 hours later, after your hCG shot, so 3 days after your anastrozole, 4 p.m., let's say, so it's 4 p.m. Monday, take anastrozole. 4 p.m. Tuesday, you take your hCG shot. 4 p.m. Wednesday, like your estradiol is peaked, but a full 24 to 48 hours, your anastrozole has peaked and has been starting to be dispersed and used at the genomic level to protect you from going nuts once the hCG stimulates the release of estradiol that's blunted by the anastrozole that you took the day before. Then 48 hours later, with a blunted aromatase level at the genomic level, you now have the peak response effect, the T peak of testosterone, not the T peak of estradiol, 48 hours after the hCG shot. So 3 days after your anastrozole, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, when you took your hCG on Tuesday, Thursday as your test peaks, you're probably going to get more of a peak because the inhibition at the level of the hypothalamus and pituitary that would normally be sent by way of the estradiol going up like crazy if you didn't take anastrozole before your hCG shot is not there. So you have a little less inhibition. Therefore, the stimulation of hCG on the testes, on the leydig cells, is more maximal, and it's less inhibited, if you will, because it doesn't have estradiol also going up so high. That is the main contributor to shutting off your tests anyway. So that's the way to use it. Plus, you don't get the extra bloat. If you are sensitive to their nip stuff, I'm not saying you won't get it, right? I can't talk in absolutes, but you're way less likely to get any kind of flare-up of estrogen or any kind of side effect of estrogen. And if you do, it's going to be less, because it's a pretty decent estimation to take 0.5 milligram of anastrozole with a commensurate 1,000 to 1,500 unit size dose of hCG 24 hours later. But the timing is key. 24 hours before your hCG shot, take your anastrozole. Hope that helps. Take care.